Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. Call hello Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors once again go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. Salutations also go out to the fellow Akim out there on the highways and byways, pushing this truth, all honesty and sincerity, trying to wake up the remaining hopefully elect. This is Naman with the DC camp. All right. As you can see here, and of course when we're talking about America, America is not even liked by all the other Edomite nations on this planet. All right. This is the wicked of the wicked. Anyway, this is from The Guardian. It says America is built on a racist social contract. As if we don't know this. It's time to tear it up and start anew. First of all, this place is not going to change until it's obliterated off the face of the earth. And that time draws nigh. That's why, more than anything, we emphasize when we're out there on the highways and byways. You get yourself right, you get your mind right for the things that are coming very shortly here. All right, because this devil knows he has but a short time. It's Revelation 12 and 12. Even somebody that's not familiar with the scriptures are sensing that, hey, something is off, something is wrong. Something's coming to a head here. So you got all kinds of people that are, storing up things, I don't want to say getting their affairs in order, but, storing up for what's coming. That includes food, weapons, ammunition. If you hadn't figured it out by now, yeah, that's what's going on. Even as far back as when Obama became president, there was a big rush to the gun stores by these Edomites. It doesn't. It's amazing that these devils can sense. But when you understand the damage that has been done to our people, it's not that big of a stretch once you realize that. All Jake has been conditioned to do is party, laugh and, laugh and giggles, laughs and giggles as this saying goes, and they're going to get caught up there. Jacob's trouble, that's no joke. When we had some that were so-called Israelites that, mocked that. You got to understand, it, it's so simple. There's a reason that it said that. Look at the condition of our people. We're the poorest of the poor. We don't have the means like these other nations to gather resources like that. The majority of us lived and have always lived paycheck to paycheck, if that. But the thing is, with what's happened the last 2.5 years plus now, there's it's strange because the people that used to look down on the people that were on the bottom, now they're being drawn closer to that level. And you can sense of course, animosity. That's why there's going to be race and class wars here. All right, that's coming. All this is, when we talk about Jacob's trouble, that's all included in that. You're having a manufactured famine, all right, that's, on the way. The emphasis on the word manufactured, because this is all being done on purpose to draw you ever more closer to possibly getting that C-HIP, all right, that MOTB. That's his ultimate goal, all right. We talk about these Edomites, this is the elites here. This is what, hey, Revelation 13, 16, and 17, it's inevitable. But back to this. We're talking about this wicked-ass system. And you have here, stop the steal, Trump won big. These Edomites are losing their mind because what? All that privilege they had, they sense it going by the wayside. All right, and in the caption here it says, this centuries long white's first framework for immigration policy was most recently articulated by Donald Trump when he asked, why are we having all these people from shithole countries come here? Oh my goodness. In case you forgot he said that, you can turn that around for the indigenous peoples here. All right? With what you brought to them, but you got to look at the big picture. These things were prophesied. These things had to be. All right? Because this is punishment. This place, these conditions, like I said, they were prophesied. We turned our back on the Most High and His laws, statutes, and commandments. We agreed by contract. Covenant is a contract. It's an agreement. And we broke that, and there were conditions. And hey, that's what we're suffering now. You can go to Deuteronomy 28. And before then, this is what we said we would do. And go into Exodus. But what do? We broke them. We broke the contract, and we are paying. Boy, are we paying. But it's also light at the end of the tunnel, because we see these curses that were put on us are being transferred to our enemies, per Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 7. All right, and also where it was promised in Genesis 12 and Genesis 17, in Jeremiah 30 and 16, all those that devoured us shall be devoured. So these things are slowly turning around, but they're turning around. And these people, like these assholes in this picture here, they sense it, all right? And they they don't want that shit. Anyway, the current social contract in America is not an expression of our deepest values, greatest hopes, and highest ideals. Quite the contrary. It is the result of a centuries-long series of compromises with Edomite supremacists. There's no such thing as white people, all right? That's something that they put on themselves. It says, in his original draft of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson, who had his own issues, included a forceful denunciation of slavery and the slave trade, condemning the execrable commerce as cruel war against human nature itself. But then again, that very last part of that cruel war against human nature itself, that's just it. They didn't consider us that. You're going to, ultimately, this is revenge, all right? Because a lot of them knew exactly who we were, all right? We weren't Africans, or you should call them Hamites, because there's no such thing as an African, all right? Afrik, from the Greek, that just means not cold, all right? And that was a surname also of a Roman general from the Punic Wars when he conquered North Africa, so-called, all right? Or the land of Ham is what it should be, all right? It says the leaders of the states engaged in the buying and selling of black bodies balked at the offending passage, and Jefferson explained the decision to compromise, writing, the clause was struck out in complacence. Let's look up that word, complacence. Wait a minute. Complacence. All right. Let's see. Complacence. All right. I guess that's how complacence. The inclination to comply willingly with the wishes of others. Amiability. Civility and graciousness, that manner of address and behavior in social intercourse which gives pleasure. All right. Synonyms: urbanity, suavity, deference, good breeding, politeness. Okay. And we know these motherfuckers weren't that. All right. But what he's saying with, they were all in agreement. And that sounds like what? Psalms 83, right? struck out in complaisance to South Carolina and Georgia, who had never attempted to restrain the importation of slaves, and who, on the contrary, still wished to continue it. Our northern brethren also, I believe, felt a little tender under those censures, for though their people have very few slaves themselves, yet they had been pretty considerable carriers of them to others. See that? For those of you that continue to believe that the North was any better. I don't think I'll need it, but I got a book by, it's called Dirty Little Secrets of Slavery by Dr. Claude Anderson. All right. He's wrote the book Powernomics, and another book called Black Labor, White Wealth. I believe that's the title of. But yeah, he went all in his books. And the first one I got, and the second one, but the second one I think was a collaboration between him and his son by the same title, but it's just part 2. Anyway, good books. And it goes in, as a matter of fact, hold on, let me get that real quick. Let me put this on pause. Hold on. Hey, Shalom, just made it back. So anyway, here they go. Found the book. I'm going to have to reference it later. I just thought about something. But anyway, so yeah, and then we're going into this part here in this Constitution. Boy, they swear about that. They put this before the Holy Scriptures. And why? Because in the spirit, they have to know that the Scriptures condemn them once you find out their nationality. See, that's the thing you have to understand. This is why they renamed all the nations. All right. And it's intended to cause confusion, which it has done up to this, this point. At least with the masses. There were those that were very aware what was going on. All right. But anyway, I'm talking about outside the elites, of course. But anyway, it says the Constitution itself, the governing document seeking to establish justice and secure the blessings of liberty. Oh, here we go with that. Is liberty to who? Not to us, certainly. All right. Is replete with compromises with, again, Edomite supremacists, demands that the nascent nation codify the inferior status of so-called black people. I'm talking about Israelites. The Fugitive Slave Clause, Article 4, Section 2, Clause 3 of the Constitution, made it illegal for anyone to interfere with slave owners who were tracking drapetomaniacs fleeing slavery. Now, this is a term that the apostles went into years ago. We're talking about in the neighborhood of 2012, somewhere in that area. But let's go ahead and let's look at it. This is fucked up, but this is what they, we had to have a problem. Define drapetomaniacs. All right. Oh, let's see. It says, as late as 1914, the third edition of Thomas Lathrop Stedman's Practical Medical Dictionary included an entry for drapetomania defined as vagabondage, dramomania, an uncontrollable or insane impulsion to wander. And that's kind of funny when you understand what that goes back to, as in, Genesis 4th chapter and who it's talking about. It says Cartwright described the disorder, which he said was unknown to our medical authorities, although its diagnostic symptom, the absconding from service, is well known to our planters and overseers. In a paper delivered from the Medical Association of Louisiana that was widely reprinted, he stated that the malady was a consequence of masters who made themselves too familiar with slaves, treating them as equals. If treated kindly, well fed and clothed, with fuel enough to keep a small fire burning all night, separated into families, each family having its own house, not permitted to run about at night to visit their neighbors, to receive visits or use intoxicating liquors, and not overworked or exposed too much to the weather, they are very easily governed. more so than any other people in the world. If any one or more of them at any time are inclined to raise their heads to a level with their master overseer, humanity and their own good requires that they should be punished until they fall into that submissive state which was intended for them to occupy. Listen to this shit. They have only to be kept in that state and treated like children to prevent and cure them from running away. In diseases and peculiarities of the Negro race, Cartwright says that the Bible calls for a slave to be submissive to his master, and by doing so, the slave will have no desire to run away. If the white man attempts to oppose the deity's will by trying to make the Negro anything else than the submissive knee-bender, which the Almighty declared he should be, by trying to raise him to a level with himself, or by putting himself on an equality with the Negro, or if he abuses the power which God has given him over his fellow man by being cruel to him or punishing him in anger, or by neglecting to protect him from the wanton abuses of his fellow servants and all others, or by denying him the unusual comforts in this and this, I guess it's supposed to be necessities of life, the Negro will run away. But if he keeps him in the position that we learned from the scriptures he was intended to occupy, that is, the position of submission, and if his master or overseer be kind and gracious in his bearing towards him without condescension, and at the same time ministers to his physical wants and protects him from abuses, the Negro is well bound and cannot run away. Remember, what was one of the curses? Deuteronomy 28 and 48. We would have to go to this piece of shit for want of all things. All right. So in that sense, yeah, it is scriptural. All right. But we know that these devils love to pervert the scriptures to their own ends. All right. It says prevention and remedy. In addition to identifying drapetomania, his feeling was that with proper medical advice strictly followed, this troublesome practice that many Negroes have of running away can be almost entirely prevented. In the case of slaves sulky and dissatisfied without cause, you see how, oh, these motherfuckers are going to pay. In the case of it says a warning sign of imminent flight, all right? Cartwright mentioned whipping the devil out of them as a preventative measure. Contemporary criticism. It says, while Cartwright's article was reprinted in the South, in the northern United States, it was widely mocked. All right, and that's all on that. I wasted enough time on that bullshit. But in any case, we're going back to what, in the case you hadn't figured it out now, it's going towards institutional racism. All right. It says, and of course, there was Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, which contains the quintessential compromise on how to enumerate the country's black population, resulting in a decision to count individual human beings, the black human beings, as 3/5 of a whole person. The whites' first mindset about citizenship and immigration policy, of course, not bearing in mind that the roles that they played when they stole everything and everybody's land, even here, when they always talk about, well, you got to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, but have you motherfuckers forgotten the Homestead Act that gave the majority of you motherfuckers a huge leg up, while at the same time denying people such as myself, even going back to the Dawes Rolls, all right, the Dawes Act, the $5 Indian, all that bullshit, the trickery, the deceit. No, but they don't consider none of that. How could they? Because you're dealing with an ungodly people, the so-called white man. That's Psalms 43 and 1. All right. It says, it is in essence a complete capitulation to the concept that America is and should primarily be a white country. I don't know how you could, not knowing its history, say otherwise. It says the 1790 Naturalization Act, one of the country's very first laws, declared that to be a citizen, one had to be a free white person. That belief was sufficiently uncontroversial that no compromise was necessary, and the provision was quickly adopted. In a unanimous opinion in the 1922 Ozawa versus United States case, the Supreme Court ruled firmly and unapologetically that U.S. law restricted citizenship to white people because the words white person means a Caucasian, and Ozawa is clearly of a race which is not Caucasian, and therefore belongs entirely outside the zone of citizenship. The racial restriction was official law until 1952 and standard practice until adoption of the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. This centuries-long whites first framework for immigration policy was most recently articulated by Donald John Trump, the man for whom 74 million Americans voted in 2020 when he asked in 2018, why are we having all these people from shithole countries come here? But that has to be followed up by, why are they shithole countries? Yeah, because you motherfuckers had a big ass hand, all right, in destabilizing those countries. Yeah. The sweeping social programs of the New Deal were the result of compromises with Confederate congressmen working to preserve white power. In a Congress that prized seniority, many of the most senior and influential members came from the states that barred black folks from voting. In his book, When Affirmative Action Was White, Ira Katznelson breaks down how the South uses legislative powers to transfer its priorities about race to Washington. Its leaders imposed them with little resistance on New Deal policies. Social Security is perhaps the signature policy of the New Deal era, but in deference to white Southerners, the program explicitly excluded farm workers and domestic workers. Why? Who made up the majority of those? As Katznelson explains, these groups constituting more than 60% of the black labor force in the 30s and nearly 75% of those who were employed in the South, were excluded from the legislation that created modern unions, from laws that set minimum wages and regulated the hours of work, and from Social Security until the 50s. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Meanwhile, they're kicking you in the rear, in the head, everywhere. Even the cornerstone of democracy, the right to vote, remains to this day the result of a creaky compromise with white nationalists. Most constitutional rights don't require regular legislation to be renewed. There are no freedom of speech or right to privacy or right to bear arms acts. We don't revisit those fundamental rights every 10 or 20 years. When it comes to the 15th Amendment, however, the right to vote has necessitated further legislation to guarantee enforcement, and the opposition has been so intractable and long-standing that the Voting Rights Act has to be regularly renewed by Congress, letting you know more and more that you were never intended to be a citizen of this country. I'm talking about people such as myself, all right? 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were written for our people and our people only. What they managed to do is, and I said in my last video, got to bring this book up, all right? There's a video of him saying, this is Dr. Claude Anderson, that we got, and this is as a result of our own leaders selling us out, that that era, so-called civil rights era, was nothing but a ruse. You got to understand, it's as simple as looking without all the glitz and glamour at how our families were more together. We did better as far as ownership of businesses, homes. Why do you think this all came about? Our people have been so caught up in deifying this Martin Luther King character, and that's what he was, a character. His real last name was White. There's pictures of him with Mr. Burns himself, Jacob Rothschild. The Rothschilds in general is picture of him with more than one. Why do you think that was? All right. This whole Nobel Peace Prize bullshit that everybody gets blinded by. Why do you think that was? This whole thing was, like I said, a ruse. And as a result, now you want to draw everybody in because you think they've been oppressed like us. And it's no comparison. Not even that fake Holocaust shit. That was by design also. So everybody took the eyes off the real Israelites, the ones that were going through the real shit. And because motherfuckers like them, they own the press and shit like that. So, of course, they push that lie out there and everybody feels sorry for them. And now they get paid off of a lie. Meanwhile, our people, the true Israelites, I mean, this is some fucked up shit, but you gotta understand. We actually deserve more. All right, we're being disrespected on a level never seen before. All right, that's Daniel 9 and 12. We can get that real quick. In fact, but before I get that, let's go into some scriptures about this fake ass. This is woe, all those laws and edicts that I just described. This is Isaiah 10 and 1. Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees and that write grievousness which they have prescribed. All right, to turn aside the needy from judgment and to take away the right from the poor of my people. That's just what I described. All this shit was to deflect, and we can't even now talk about shit that affects only us. You got all this diversity bullshit, and it's weakened us. Now you got shit like Rainbow Coalition, all this other shit, bringing people that had nothing to do with what we went through amongst us. And it's so sad because they come in, they use us to springboard, their agenda, and then they don't know us anymore. And of course, like I mentioned, our leaders, they sold us out. Zechariah 11 and 5, even Jeremiah 14 and 2, gates languish. The gates, you have to go to ancient cities of Judah specifically, of Israel specifically, and once a stranger came, they had to address the leadership. What are you here for? What are your intentions? What's your business? All right. So they've languished. They gave up, the fight. They said, fuck it. We sell out for, a big ass house, a nice car, 2.5 kids, whatever, the so-called American dream. That's what our people sold out for. All right. So that's what it says, to turn aside the needy from judgment and to take away the right from the poor, my people, that widows may be their prey and that they may rob the fatherless. So our so-called leaders step back, and just let the wolves have us. All right. So let's get some other scriptures here, some examples. Of course, Habakkuk. We could stay there because this is what's going on. Let's see. Actually, we'll start in Jeremiah, right? Because it says, woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that putteth a bottle to him. Oh, that's the wrong one. I thought that sounded familiar. Jeremiah, I meant to hit. It says, woe unto him that buildeth his house by unrighteousness, and his chambers by wrong, that useth his neighbor's service without wages, and giveth him not for his work. And this thing coming up now with reparations, you see the resistance, you see the anger when it comes to our people. But look at all this money they're giving to people you don't even know over here that actually started this shit. I'm talking about Ukraine. Russia just defending its borders. All this shit, and with the current president and his son, all that shit is mixed up together. And they're doing this shit to cover up their dirt. Hey, the president over there, Zelensky, is related to George Soros. who set up BLM, so-called Black Lives Matter. This is all a fucking sick joke, really. You're going to set up 3 homosexual women. Initially, it was, a male with them, to so-called represent the Israelite family. That's fucking some sick-ass shit. Not too many people can look at it that way. They've been fooled into marching with these. What does a nation of people that's gone through what we've gone through have to do with sexual deviance? I'm still trying to figure it out. This is so fucking wicked. But again, our people have been tricked into, well, these people are oppressed too. They can come along with us. We got to get the fuck up out of here. Our people are so fucking stupid. Jeremiah 4:22, Sodom's children. Hosea 4:6, actually start at 1, but verse 6, a lack of knowledge. That's how our people are destroyed. All right. I mean, whew. Oh, man. But this is how, let's go to, right here. This is Psalms 94:20. Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law? What are we talking about here? All this shit that we were reading, that these devils, these so-called laws and statutes that they're doing, all right, that they wrote, this is aimed at hurting us. This was all planned. No other people, all right, you know what? Let's get that real quick. In fact, I'm going to stay right there and use another one. Let's go to no other people, none. But our people don't want to, thankfully, well, let me put it like this. The people that were meant to get it are going to get it. That's what it boils down to. That's why this is not for everybody. All right, you got to take your emotions out of it. This is Daniel 9:12 says, and he hath confirmed his words, which he spake against us and against our judges that judged us. Notice these, this is us, these, let's see, let me go here, hold on. Possessive. All right. Possessive pronouns. All right. All right. Possessive pronoun is a part of speech that takes the place of a noun to show possession or ownership, indicating that something belongs to someone. All right. Let's see. Possessive noun, that book is Sasha's. Possessive pronoun, that book is hers. All right. Or his, or whatever. All right. And you'll see a lot of that in the scriptures. Mine, ours. All right. And it breaks it down. My, our, their. All right. Dependent possessive pronouns. All right. All right. And it gives you examples. You mean to tell me all these people that got these fancy degrees? See, the thing you're going to figure out, if you haven't already, that a lot of people that have nothing to do with the Bible wanted to say what they wanted to say. Nope. And that's how people were so easily sold a lie. All right, a blatant, outright lie. It was never for everybody. It was always for one specific group of people. All right, and people, what Great Millstone has done is forced everybody to actually read the Bible for themselves. Not have some piece of shit that was set up in some church that has nothing to do with the Most High. Because that's part of, the law. It says, a person's hands, I believe that's in, is it Exodus? About building a temple. You're not supposed to hew the stones. I can't remember exactly. Hewed implies that you have chiseled them. You have man's hands have cut them. You're not supposed to do that. So that's why it says in Acts about he dwells not in temples made with hands. All right. Let's see. What's the pronouns? I think you get it by now, but possessive pronouns: mine, yours, his, hers, it's, theirs. So this is not for everybody. It's so simple. All right. See. Possessive adjectives. All right. But I think you got the point. Anyway. So let's go back. And he had confirmed his words which he spake against us and against our judges that judged us by bringing upon us a great evil, for under the whole heaven hath not been done as hath been done upon Jerusalem. As it is written in the law of Moses, all this evil has come upon us, yet made we not our prayer before the Most High Yahweh our power. You gotta understand, everything was taken from us, even the Most High's name, because we continually kept going off. So that's what happened. So, by contrast, these people pretending to be us say they have known that they were the so-called Jews forever. But that's not what the scriptures say. It says, therefore hath the Most High, Yahweh, which is his name, watched upon the evil and brought it upon us. For the Most High Yahweh, our power, is righteous in all his works, which he doeth, for we obeyed not his voice. We obeyed not his voice, not everybody else. All right. And now, O Most High Yahweh, our power, that has brought thy people forth out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand, and has gotten thee renown, as at this day we have sinned, we have done wickedly. And ultimately, verse 16 here is what we're doing. We're praying that, please turn your anger away. This is verse 16. O Most High, according to all thy righteousness, I beseech thee, I beg thee, let thine anger and thy fury be turned away from the city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a people before it's a place. All right. Thy holy mountain, because for our sins and for the iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and thy people are become a reproach to all that are about us. And as we are, as per what the curses say, we are we become an astonishment to everybody else. They look at us and they go, man, them people are fucked up. All right. We're ashamed. All right. 17. Now therefore, O our power, hear the prayer of thy servant and his supplications, and cause thy face to shine upon thy sanctuary that is desolate. And we are desolate. All right. We are a pitiful, as someone told me, this was back in this is a long time ago. This is like 79, around 80, 81, somewhere in that time. And this lady that I'm talking about, she made a statement. She said, we are a pitiful people. We are a pitiful people. We're under the curses. That shows you, and as part of that, where is that specifically? Deuteronomy 28 and 40, let's see, like around 45, 40, 43, 44, and 45. It tells you that these curses, as a sign to show who we are, they would cleave to us. They would stick to us as an example, as a mark. It's so simple. It's like, wow, how could I not associate this? But that's the thing. The Spirit has to be worked with you. And this is, going to show you what the Spirit does when it is allowed to work with you. It opens up your eyes. You have that eye salve. You see what others can't. That's the whole point. You can go to school your entire life, and that's an example of all these so-called preachers out here. All right, you're letting your enemy teach you about yourself. How stupid is that when you think about it? The people that hate you the most, you go to their institutions to try to learn about you, and it's even weirder and blasphemous because they try to, what's the word? Well, the study of theology itself is the study of your power, your God. That's crazy. But this is what's going on with our people. You're so caught up in taking this devil's word for anything, you're making him in effect, your God. And that's, now that I say that, that's actually what Revelation 13 and 16 and 17 is about. At the end of the day, you're going to have to make a choice. Are you going to take this chip to become part of this devil's system, thereby saying that he is your God? Or are you going to endure to the end, all right, and say, no, the Most High, Yahweh is my God, and my God only. All right, but of course we have to go through the Son, Yahweh Shai. All right. Wow, and it's like, 18, O my God, my power, incline thine ear and hear, open thine eyes and behold our desolations in the city which is called by thy name. Not everybody is called by his name. For we do not present our supplications before thee for our righteousness, or righteousnesses, all right, but for thy great mercies. "19. O Most High Yahweh, hear. O Most High Yahweh, forgive. O Most High Yahweh, hearken and do. Defer not for thine own sake, O my power, for the city and the people are called by thy name." There you go. So here it is. They've got our people who do all the suffering, who get murdered daily by those that supposedly are in authority, all right, as far as the police, protect and serve. But as we, the system is set up to where you got to understand, they were exposed during the civil rights era for the cruelty that they had done and were doing to us. So they had to flip it around. Well, now everybody sees, guy gets shot 40 times, and they come up and say, we thought he had a gun. Because actually that's what they want you to do. All right, there's different ways to fight. Now, we're not telling you not to defend yourselves if it comes to that, but you got to understand the way this is set up. It's to make you the bad guy. It always has been. But earlier they did it with such impunity because actually no one really gave a damn. And this is before. Now with all the phones, their personal computers, they have amazing camera features and video features on them. All right, that's really what's behind the anger here, because they can't get away with shit they used to get away with. All right, let's see. So when it comes to the 15th Amendment, however, the right to vote has necessitated further legislation to guarantee enforcement. All right, and as it goes, this is something that they have to renew. And you have to ask, the question should be, why, if we're supposed to be citizens? That's your answer, actually. Even after extracting a cavalcade of compromises over the centuries, Confederates have consistently demonstrated that they do not feel obligated to honor any agreements or democratic institutions if those agreements or institutions fail to adequately protect whiteness. You have to understand, the police still to this day, one of their main agendas is still to enforce segregation. Don't take much to go into even if you don't realize it's the wrong neighborhood, you'll be reminded real shortly. All right, it says, but of course the same doesn't happen when the shoe is on the other foot. It says, from the Civil War itself to the 2021 insurrection, The white nationalist response to Democratic defeat has been to attempt to destroy American institutions and shred our national agreements. In contract law, a contract becomes null and void if one party did not enter into it in good faith, or if one party breaches the agreement and walks away from its mutual commitments. Remember what I said? This is what we're guilty of when it comes to the Most High. All right, it says, given the clear bad faith and contempt for any allegiance to the common good, why do we have to cling to the old frameworks? The answer is we don't. We do not have to stifle our dreams and surrender our principles. We can now craft a new, fundamentally different social contract. But it's not going to happen. That's one of the, talking about a pipe dream. No, as I said from the onset, the only way for us to get any relief is for this whole thing to be obliterated. All right, and that's in the works. All right, this place got to go. You know, Edom, which is what they are. That's their nationality. They're descendants of Jacob's brother, Esau. And he swore to kill Jacob. That's in Genesis 27, verse 41. All right? But you got to read everything before then, starting with Genesis 25th chapter. All right? This is what this is all about. It's never been because you're black. What the fuck is that? They're not white. This is something that our people have been tricked into falling into a trap, a box that they set up. I've never seen a black man in my life. I've seen some pretty dark brown people, but never black. As same can be said about so-called white people. They are red. They're not white. Oh, but anyway, let's go to this book real quick. It says Civil War and Reconstruction. This is chapter 13 in the book. All right. All right. In the last, I'm going to read the last one because time. I didn't mean for it to go this long. But it says in 1860, black Americans owned and controlled approximately 0.5% of the nation's wealth. By 1990, blacks own and control 1 1/2% of the nation's wealth. That's 32 years ago now. So from 1860 to 1990, you're talking about 130 years. All right? And we were just treading water. Now it's 162, of course, so still treading water. Wow. But here's the main thing I want to get, since we're talking about Thomas Jefferson and all these other characters. It says, talking about Lincoln. And in this chapter, it says, with the green there, if you can, hold on. Let's see if you can see it. It says, Lincoln did not free the slaves. All right, I'm going to read the green portion. All right. Actually, I'll read the first paragraph. Slocky. It says, historical facts suggest President Lincoln was everything but the great emancipator of black slaves. During the earlier years of the Civil War, President Lincoln publicly claimed he would not and could not free black slaves. He even acknowledged that the Civil War was not about black people, but about national unity. Lincoln was not passive in his support of slavery, even when Union commanders issued orders freeing slaves in captured Confederate territory. Lincoln blocked such orders at least twice. Lincoln's position was strengthened by the U.S. Congress in 1861 when it passed and referred to the states in an amendment to the Constitution that guaranteed that Congress could never abolish black slavery in America. Few Northern politicians had any interest in freeing black slaves. They were concerned about breaking the wealth and political power base of the South. Now here's, now this is fucked up. It says most politicians knew that Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was a sham. Lincoln was president of the Union only. He could not and did not free black slaves. The Emancipation Proclamation spoke gloriously about freeing slaves in the Deep South, over which the Union had no authority. Yet it ignored blacks in the border states over which Lincoln did not have authority. The attitude of Lincoln and his administration was succinctly put in Lincoln's letter of December 22nd, 1860 to Alexander Stephens, soon to become Vice President of the Confederacy. And he quotes, "Do the people of the South really entertain fears that a Republican administration would, directly or indirectly, interfere with the slave or with them about the slaves? If they do, I wish to assure you, as once a friend and still, I hope, not an enemy, that there is no more danger in this respect than it was in the days of Washington," as in George Washington. Even the British press regarded the Emancipation Proclamation as sheer hypocrisy. The Times of London sarcastically remarked that Lincoln considered himself a sort of moral American Pope, where he has no power. Mr. Lincoln will set the Negroes free. Where he retains power, he will consider them as slaves. Lincoln died holding the same views about blacks that he held firmly throughout his public life. Oh, then there's more on this, but I'm going to leave it there because of time's sake. This man was a fraud, and they taught these lies. You got to remember, the South lost the war, but they won the propaganda war, because in the early 20th century, especially in the South, the Daughters of the Confederacy, they had a lot to do with the curriculum being taught, and they pushed that bullshit to, everybody's sympathetic to the South's cause. Hey, so that's going to be it on this video, but it's so much that, once you get into this, it's just things that come out, It says America is built on a racist social contract. It is. This is a wicked, wicked, wicked place, so-called America. And it's, the irony is the word Amara, it means bitter, Oh, yeah. It's going to be interesting here in the next, let's see, this is the 23rd still. So you're looking at, let's see, 7, 8. You're looking like 15 days in a wake up, something like that, before this next election. Midterm elections come out. Oh, what was the date? Is it the 8th or is it the... Let's see. Hold on. We'll just settle this. I don't want to give out any, bad enemy. Let's see. 2022 midterm. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, crap. Let's see. 46th date. It is the 8th. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I was right. Okay. I just wanted to be sure. I thought something about the 11th. I think that's December. I was a date in my head for something. Anyway, yeah. So like 15 days. And it's going to be real interesting. This place is going to, especially, well, it doesn't matter. But I'm looking at it from the standpoint if these Republicans lose, if they don't capture the seats or at least win the majority, that's what I'm looking at. Yes, 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 yes. And the same can be said about the opposite, but I think it's going to be more fucked up when the Republicans don't get their way. All right. Hey, so with that, one can only hope. Hey, so with that, once again, I hope that you're edified. That's what I aim to do. And once again, as I said from the onset, time is growing short. This thing can explode in any moment. Get your mind right. Stay prayed up. You know, as scripture say, pray always. You know, because like I said, Jacob's trouble, despite what some say, oh, it's real. It's very real. The beginnings of it are happening even now. Hey, well, so with that, hey, until the next video, hey, shalom.